What's the age to vote? 18 years? Okay, so that means that in 20 years, somebody born today can vote. So, what does that mean? All these millions, because they are millions of Muslim immigrants who have come into the Western democracies, what's going to happen is that in 20 years, they're going to rule the roost insofar as elections are concerned. And because they tend to vote the way the Imam says, because they do, in just about every enclave of Muslims in the Western democracies, when the Imam says, vote this way, they all vote that way. I mean, like 95% vote that way. Well, what does that mean? It means that a very small handful of men, Muslim leaders, are going to control the Western democracies. That is what's going to happen. And so in 20 years, what are they going to do? They're going to squeeze out the feminists. Absolutely. Yeah, that's what's going to happen. It's simple. Feminists and LGBTQ and Jews, they all made a pact with the devil. They thought that, they couldn't win the right, they couldn't beat the right on principles. And so what they decided to do is to short-circuit the democratic process by way of mass immigration. They allowed all of these Muslim immigrants into the UK, into the United States, figuring that they would vote on the correct side, the left side, the pro-immigration side, right? And they do, but their values are antithetical to the values of feminists, to the values of the LGBTQ community, to the values of the Jewish community. They hate them. These Muslims who came over hate these groups that they are politically allied to right now. Feminism and Islam ought to be antagonists. I mean, feminism is always arguing about the patriarchy, right? Well, Islam is a patriarchal religion. So by all rights, Islam should be just like, frothing at the mouth insofar as feminists are concerned. And feminists ought to be frothing at the mouth insofar as Muslims are concerned, right? But that's not happening. On the contrary, they're political allies. Feminism never criticizes any Muslim country. And whenever, like, Saudi Arabia does something trivial, like allow women to drive or go to the supermarket or the shopping mall unaccompanied by a male from their family, whenever Saudi Arabia or any other hardcore Muslim country does such a trivial little PR stunt, feminists in the West, in the Western European countries and in North America and Oceania, right, they jump for joy, right? They act like this is like, oh, this is so wonderful, women's rights in these repressive societies, blah, blah, but they never criticize the core of these hardcore Muslim states. Now, do they? Of course they don't. And for their part, Muslim leaders do not criticize feminism or gay rights, for instance, or the tranny thing that's going on, which is just crazy. They don't criticize any of that. On the contrary, Muslim leaders, not rank-and-file Muslims, note, I'm talking Muslim leaders, they keep mum about what they obviously think of as degeneracy. Feminism and gay rights and all that stuff is degenerate in the eyes of the Muslim population. But Muslim leaders in the West, not in places like Iran where they speak their mind, no, in the West, they keep mum. And this is because of political calculation on both sides. See, Muslims and feminists, Muslims and LGBTQRXPLDD, whatever the fuck acronyms they have, those people, right? They're in bed together, they're on the political left. But it's more complicated than that. It's not merely that they are on the political left. It's not merely that they are political allies. Their political alliance come from similar reasons. In fact, I'd venture to argue identical reasons. It comes from corporatism. It comes from neoliberal economic dogma. And this isn't going to be obvious, so you're just going to have to bear with me for a little bit. Let me explain. Neoliberal economic dogma, globalism, for lack of a better word or a simple word. It is the economic ideology of the rich people, of the oligarchs, of the 1% of the 1%. That top sliver of society loves neoliberal economic policy. Why? Because it maximizes profits. The whole idea of neoliberal economic dogma is to lower tariffs, lower taxes, and make intercontinental trading more fluid so that oligarchs can move their factories to the place where the labor is cheapest, move their capital to where it maximizes return on investment. It looks to lower trade barriers and also, much more importantly, lower protection of workers, lower the price of workers. Because ultimately, in any industry, the most expensive item insofar as any factory or any business is concerned is labor. Labor prices are the biggest item insofar as any business. And so oligarchs, what do they want? They want to lower the cost of labor. And how have they realized that they can do this? Now, there are two ways to lower the cost of anything. You can create more of that thing or require less of that thing. Both give you the same results, right? So on the one hand, if you create automation to eliminate labor, well, automatically then it becomes cheaper, right? If you have a self-driving truck, you don't have to pay the truck driver, right? You just buy the computer that self-drives the truck, and that's that. The truck is going to drive by itself, and you don't need to pay the ongoing salary of the truck driver because now it's a machine, it's been automated, right? So automation, that's one way to lower the cost of something, of labor. The other way to lower the cost of labor is to bring more workers into the marketplace, have more workers working, right? Now, what does feminism want? Feminism wants more women to go into the workforce because for political reasons, feminists believe that women in the workforce give women independence and happiness and blah, blah, blah. So feminism encourages women to go into the workforce. Is this good for oligarchs? Of course it is. Because if before you had, say, just 100 men working at some particular job, but all of a sudden you have 200 people, 100 men and 100 women, going and competing for the same job, you can pay them less. You see? That's why corporations and feminism, as I've argued before, are each other's best friends. They need one another. Corporatism especially, neoliberal, the neoliberal economic paradigm in particular, the neoliberal economic paradigm of the oligarchy of the Western democracies. They love feminism because it drives down the price of labor. Same thing with mass immigration from the Middle Eastern countries. See? The Middle Eastern countries that are predominantly Muslim. The oligarchs, the top 1% of the 1%, and also the service class, that top 20% echelon of the society, that services that top 1% of the 1%, right? The accountants, the lawyers, the real estate people, the yoga instructors, and all those fucking people, right? That top 20%, they are in favor of mass immigration because all of these mass immigrants will lower the price of labor. Because you got to keep in mind, if all of these women are working in the workforce, they are not having children. Since they are not having children in the Western democracies, the population is declining. When a population declines, of course, the price of labor goes up. So how do you counteract this? By mass immigration. Corporatists, feminists encourage mass immigration. And so what happens with Muslim leaders, Muslim political leaders? They want more of their people to go to the Western democracies. So these Muslim leaders will have more political power. You go to England, for instance, right? And it's the local Muslim mullah, or whatever he's called, the local top man of these boroughs who decides how everybody's going to vote. And so the Labour Party in the UK, for instance, goes straight to the imams and asks them to vote for them. And so the imams preach to their congregations to vote Labour, and so they do. And so that's how it's working. You see what I mean? The Muslim leadership wants more Muslims to enter the Western democracies. The corporatists want more Muslims and Middle Easterners to enter the Western democracies in order to lower the price of labor. See, everybody wants this, and so everybody's allied. That's why they're working together, the feminists and the Muslims. See? By rights, they should hate one another. But because of political expediency, and most important of all, to lower the price of labor for the oligarchs, for the corporatists, for the globalists, they all work together politically and they don't shit on one another. Of course not, because they are political allies. They all want the same thing. But we are seeing some interesting effects as of late. Yeah, this political alliance from hell, right? The Jews are starting to realize that this wasn't such a smart idea. Yeah? Because the Jews used to be part of the liberal establishment, Jewish section in both the United States and Canada and in the UK and the other Western democracies, though in Europe, for obvious reasons, there aren't that many Jews anymore, but be that as it may, these Jewish voters voted liberal for reasons of their own. But now they are getting squeezed out because the left-wing parties are being dominated by feminists and, more importantly, by Muslims. And the Muslims hate the Jews for obvious reasons. So the Muslims are putting political pressure on the left-leaning parties to attack Jews, to attack Israel. They attack Israel because, again, obvious reasons, and also as a proxy to squeeze out the Jews from the left-wing parties. And so we are seeing this. We are seeing this now in the United States, which is remarkable. The Jews in the United States, which traditionally voted Democratic and who were vocal proponents of democratic policies, now they are shifting to the Republican Party because they're finding themselves squeezed out of the Democratic Party. It's incredibly funny because it was Jews in the United States and in the UK who were the biggest proponents of mass immigration. It's the mass immigrants from the Middle East that are squeezing out the Jews in the UK and the United States. Yeah, that's what's going on. It's funny as hell, right? But it's political reality, or more to the point, it's demographic reality. You know, a lot of people say that demographics is destiny. Fucking A. In a democracy, in a representative democracy where the numbers count, yes, this is absolutely true. And the problem is, for Jews, is that there are more Muslims than Jews. And so the Muslims in the Western democracies, in the UK and the US, they're squeezing out the Jews, and the Jews are having to go to the right-wing party, to the Conservative Party, to the Republican Party. Yeah. And we're going to continue to see that, and we're going to continue to see this alliance between feminism and Islam. Now, the issue becomes, how long will this last? Because you see, just as the Jews eventually got squeezed out by the Muslims from the left-wing parties, eventually the Muslims are going to start to squeeze out those sectors, groups within the left-wing parties that they don't agree with at all. And I think that, I mean, if I had to guess, and this is just an educated guess, but, you know, time will tell if I'm wrong or right, the next group that they're going to squeeze out are the LGBTQ plus groups. Oh, yeah. Because which group of people do Muslims hate the most? Jews, obviously. And then, which is the next group that they hate the most? Gays and lesbians. Yeah, they think that they're degenerate, disgusting whatevers, right? That's what they think. They say this. They don't make any bones about it. Of course, they don't say this in the UK and the US, at least the leadership doesn't, right? But the rank and file Muslims hate Jews, hate gays. And so they hated the Jews and they squeezed them out. They hate the gays, and my thinking is that they're the next group to be squeezed out. They're going to be squeezed out of the left, and the gays are going to have no place left to go, because there isn't a hell of a lot of love lost between the right-wing parties and the LGBTQ parties now, right? Isn't? Yeah. So This is what's going to happen. This is what's coming. Okay? It's really fascinating because, see, again, to repeat, Jews and also LGBTQ people and feminists, they all advocated mass immigration. And they got mass immigration. They got this Muslim population. But this Muslim population, their values are antithetical to their own. And because we live in a representative democracy, numbers count. Demographics is destiny. If this were an authoritarian regime or a totalitarian regime, it wouldn't matter. But in a representative democracy, it does. And the Muslims who are coming over, they have the numbers. They have the numbers not just because of the ones who came over. No, it's because of the children that they are having. What's the age to vote? 18 years? Okay, so that means that in 20 years, somebody born today can vote. So what does that mean? All these millions, because they are millions of Muslim immigrants who have come into the Western democracies, what's going to happen is that in 20 years, they're going to rule the roost insofar as elections are concerned. And because they tend to vote the way the Imam says, because they do, in just about every enclave of Muslims in the Western democracies, when the Imam says, vote this way, they all vote that way. I mean, like 95% vote that way. Well, what does that mean? It means that a very small handful of men, Muslim leaders, are going to control the Western democracies. That is what's going to happen. And so in 20 years, what are they going to do? They're going to squeeze out the feminists. Absolutely. Yeah, that's what's going to happen. It's simple. Feminists and LGBTQ and Jews, they all made a pact with the devil. They thought that, they couldn't win the right, they couldn't beat the right on principles. And so what they decided to do is to short-circuit the democratic process by way of mass immigration. They allowed all of these Muslim immigrants into the UK, into the United States, figuring that they would vote on the correct side, the left side, the pro-immigration side, right? And they do, but their values are antithetical to the values of feminists, to the values of the LGBTQ community, to the values of the Jewish community. They hate them. These Muslims who came over hate these groups that they are politically allied to right now. And they've already squeezed out the Jews. It's only a matter of time before they squeeze out the gays. They're going to do that. I bet it's going to be not more than 5 years. Maybe even less, maybe 3 years. And they're going to, it'll be the Muslims, note this, it'll be the Muslims who start, talking about how transsexuals are propagating pedophilia. You're already seeing in UK how the Muslims are the ones who are objecting to LGBTQ education in the schools. They are objecting virulently, and they're really going to town on this issue. It's inevitable, and it's the fault of these left-wing groups, the feminists, the LGBTQ, and the Jewish community. It's their fault that they will be squeezed out of political power. Fucking funny, if you ask me.